The biggest threat to retirees' money isn't a market crash. It's one spending myth almost everyone believes. After helping hundreds retire, I've seen how this spending lie blindsides people in retirement and puts a dent in their savings at the worst possible time. So in this video, I'll show you the lie and a simple process to retire confidently without risking your savings. Let me show you how this lie can be the reason retirees run out of money, using Gene and Paul as an example. Here's what they're spending today, and here's what they expected to spend once they retired. The green boxes are the costs they thought would drop, things like the mortgage being paid off and the extra costs from commuting. The red boxes are the places they plan to spend more, like travel. When you add that up, their total spending looks like it should fall by about $1,000 a month. But that's not what actually happens for a lot of retirees, and what JP Morgan saw in their study of 280,000 households. This new column shows the real picture. Once Gene and Paul retired, they finally had time to take care of the home projects they've been putting off, so the rest of their housing costs went up. Gene's employer wasn't covering part of their health insurance anymore, so healthcare rose too. And with more free time, they went out to eat more often, spent more on hobbies, and on time with the grandkids. So what Gene and Paul expected isn't what actually happened. And that brings us to the lie that traps almost every retiree. I'll spend less in retirement than I did while I was working. Here's the part almost no one realizes. Planning for less than you'll actually spend can do more damage to your retirement than a major market crash. Let me show you what that looks like. This example from Schwab compares two retirees who both go through the exact same market crash and the exact same recovery afterward. The only difference is how much they're spending. Investor 1 spends a smaller portion of their portfolio, and because of that, their recovery only takes a few years. Investor 2 spends a bigger portion, and that extra spending becomes a headwind. Their portfolio has to work much harder just to keep up, and it never fully comes back from the exact same crash. So it wasn't the crash that ruined Investor 2's plan, it was their spending. The market recovered, their portfolio didn't, because the withdrawals kept bleeding it down. That's why thinking you'll spend less in retirement is actually a bigger risk than the crash itself. But here's the catch. Most people hear this and think, okay, I'll just plan to spend a little more. But what puts retirees at risk isn't just higher spending. It's something much harder to control. In JP Morgan's study of 280,000 retirees, 6 in 10 saw major swings in spending from year to year, what they call spending volatility. And here's why spending volatility becomes such a dangerous problem. Two investors both start retirement with the exact same spike in spending. The only difference is what the market is doing. Investor 1 has that jump in spending the same year the market drops. And when those two hits land together, their portfolio never recovers. Investor 2 has that same spending spike, but their market drop doesn't come until much later. And because those two hits don't stack on top of each other, the crash does far less damage. And that's why spending volatility is such a big risk. When your spending spikes at the wrong time, the damage can follow you for the rest of retirement. But here's what makes this impossible. You have no idea which year life will hit you with a big expense, and no idea which year the market will drop. So how do you defend yourself from two things you can't predict at the same time? It's just like putting away groceries. If you don't put the ice cream in the freezer right away, it melts. But you can leave a can of soup on the counter for weeks and nothing happens. Retirement spending works the same way. You don't defend money you'll spend in a year the same way you defend money you'll spend in a decade. So we break your spending into 3 simple buckets. First is short-term spending. This is your ice cream. It needs protection now. But what most retirees miss is that this isn't just the mortgage or utility bills you know are coming. You can also keep a small buffer for the surprises you can't plan for. Because when the roof leaks or the water heater dies, those bills don't wait for the market to recover. That's why short-term spending is often covered by cash or low-risk money, since these tend to remain stable no matter what the market is doing. Second is midterm spending, the stuff you won't pay for this year, but you can already see it coming. New cars, home projects, big trips. And the thing people forget is that the roof repair that's $10,000 today could be $15,000 by the time you need it. So your money can't just sit still. That's why midterm spending is often covered by a balanced, middle-of-the-road portfolio, money designed to stay steady enough to smooth out the swings, but stay ahead of rising costs. Third is long-term spending, things like future care needs or the legacy you want to leave. You don't need this money now, and no one knows what these goals will cost years from today, only that the price won't go down. That's why long-term dollars stay invested for growth. With time on your side, this money has a chance to grow into whatever those future costs become. So now you can see exactly why the number one spending lie is so dangerous, and how to build a spending plan that can protect you instead of putting your retirement at risk. But even with the right strategy, most retirees still run into one last problem. They can't give themselves permission to spend. After 30 years of saving and sacrificing, it feels safer to hold back than to enjoy what they built, even when the numbers say they're okay. Watch this next. It'll show you the data that stops retirees from worrying about spending and start enjoying the retirement they plan for.